Pauly. Up until very recently, Paul was the only living sculptor of a monument on Monument Avenue, but I think we can all agree that the protesters have, as living people, adapted the Lee Monument recently to maybe contest that. So it's a little bit of competition there for Paul. He's also, his most famous monuments are Ash, Connecticut, the Headman, which you can currently be seen on Browns Island, and King Neptune in Virginia Beach, but a smaller version can be found in the VMFA Sculpture Garden. And if you're ever lucky enough to visit his studio, I suggest you ask him about the Jimmy Dean statue in his front yard.
Hi, everybody. So I'm gonna, in the interest of cutting it short, I'm gonna try to give points that are worth talking about either individually with me or individually with somebody else or as a group later, because the group clearly is worth getting together and talking about this again. And in fact, of the two things we were asked to do, one of them was how can you, or how can I individually, propel what we're doing here? And it is, how can I contribute? And it is to meet again, to talk amongst ourselves. So, that being said, I want to say that I dedicated myself to public art by doing Connecticut, which was the Indian that was at the Diamond for 25 years. But I didn't do it for the Diamond. I did it to honor Native Americans in the capital of America, Washington, D.C. And it was both a hook for the press. How can you resist that? That there's no Native Americans in the capital of America, and here's the first statue of a Native American. And that got it to the New York Times, and that helped launch my career, of course. But in 1983, when I did that, it was successful in that Best Products leased it from me and put it on their building because it was good copy. NBC, ABC, and CBS News all covered it. It came to Richmond to go on the Braves baseball stadium. And that's an example of how public art gets used, whether it's used, abused, or used, appreciated. But the fact is, for the artist, it doesn't matter because any news is good news. Your name in the paper is good news. But I didn't particularly like it at the Diamond. Not that that matters. But I self-produced that, and with that model, meaning I raised money to, by selling prints in the case of Connecticut. But in the case of Arthur Ashe, it was the same model. And what I recognize, what I call, is a crying market need that is social. There's a social need. And that's what's happened on Monument Avenue now. That there was a crying social need, a market need, to tear down the monuments. It was not obvious 5 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. It was the murder of a black man caught on tape that sparked it. So what sparked the crying market need to change Monument Avenue, to change monuments all over the country? Arthur Ashe, at the time I met him, was dying of AIDS. He had contracted AIDS in a brain surgery, brain tumor removal in New York City prior to knowing that plasma was tainted. And he had gotten plasma from the New York market of plasma givers. So when I met him, the press had just found out, and at his workshop presentation, there were probably 24 people who come to hear him speak, and 60 children or more, which is why I showed up to attend the workshop. And what I recognized was here is an internationally known man, born and raised and educated in Richmond and in Virginia, who's being ignored. So it was what I saw as a need to put him in a place where he could be acknowledged. And it took me 6 months to get up the gumption to say, well, that can be done. I can do that. So talking about lies earlier today and talking about truth, a couple of people referred to this. It's not the lies that I heard, it's the truths that I heard. It's people telling me the truth that stands out in my life, because we're lied to so often. And the big lie that we currently all are hearing about, right under our noses, is shocking to most people I know, but I hang in a different crowd than all the people who are saying, oh yeah, well, the big lie's true. But in public art, it's truth that makes art successful. And it can be narrative, aka figurative art, or it can be inherent, like constructivist sculpture. And I would like to point to Paley, for example, who I think the museum has a gate of Paley's gates, right? So welded steel started out doing really ornate, beautiful, lyrical narrative in a way, for Flora anyway, gates. And now Paley's doing these 60 feet or taller constructivist sculptures that resonate somehow with human beings. And so that's the challenge, is to try to make something that resonates on a level that is that you carry with you, that there's that you notice between you and the object. It's not narrative like a figure, but it involves you as a physical thing. And of course, architects deal with that all the time. But it's a finer point on it when an architect has a utilitarian function. Architecture has utilitarian function, whereas sculpture does not. And so that's the challenge. And for me, I like the playbook of figurative sculpture. So trying to put together a figurative sculpture that's also compelling and uses space. But the Ash piece in particular landed in Richmond at a time he needed to land in Richmond. And he died at a time that he needed to die in order to propel his legacy in Richmond. And so it was only 2 weeks after I talked to him and he agreed to let me do his authorized, and if he approved it, approved statue, that he passed. And had that not happened, had his wife not been involved and sent me pictures that he said he was going to send, that I received 3 days after his death, that his wife mailed to me, I might have not been compelled to move forward with the project. But the city was ready to hear it and ready to do it, unbeknownst to the city itself. It really changed Monument Avenue in that it was, why would we put a black man on a Confederate avenue of heroes? Why would we do that? To why wouldn't we put a black man on an avenue of heroes? And so with that shift, I agreed it was a good idea. Initially I didn't. And then secondly, the city voted unanimously to do it. Jeannie Ash presently would like to move Arthur Ashe to Woodland Graveyard, where his mother and where Arthur Ashe is buried. So Jeannie Ash can get it done, is what I say about that. And so we'll see what happens next. That's all I have. I wanted to be brief. um, and happy to talk to anybody who wants to call later or today. But I hope we meet again. On that note, however, I want to mention, I was talking with Camden, I think earlier, or Bob, could have been Julie, but the city moves forward best when it's propelled by its citizens, is my observation, being back to Richmond for 37 years. The citizenry tells the city, leads the city in great ideas, and Richmond's benefited for that. And reimagining Monument Avenue will take time. And the idea that we're going to solve it by getting rid of the statues, by getting rid of the pedestals, is folly, in my opinion. I think we should hang on to the statues because they may be tools for education later. We should hang on to, leave the pedestals there for a while. There's tremendous problems with that, with the residents, and seeing the horror as it was demonstrated by the demonstrators on the monuments as graffiti. But that is, who said it? Was it Anna who said it? I can't remember now. But that is the moment. That is the art that's going on Monument Avenue right now. It's the monument. And we need to breathe through this. And so I've been pushing the city as much as I can to take your time. And I keep quoting Benjamin Franklin. Take time with all things. Great haste makes great waste. Thank you.